Death is coming for our family.
Grandma, what's happening to us?
Years ago, I had a premonition that started it all.
I saw what death was about to do.
Maybe death's not actually coming for our family. Because that would be crazy.
Good luck.
The movie begins in 1968, where Paul is driving his girlfriend Iris to a surprise location while she's blindfolded. When they arrive outside a building, he removes the blindfold, and Iris is stunned to see Skyview, a high-rise tower featuring an upscale restaurant at the top. As they head inside, a security guard warns a child not to take coins from the fountain, saying it's bad luck. As they near the elevator and see it's crowded, Iris suggests waiting, but the lift operator insists they can fit them in. They step into the elevator, and the operator presses the button, but as the doors begin to close, it gets stuck halfway. Apologizing, the liftman says it happens sometimes and manually forces it shut. As the elevator begins to ascend, fear is visible on Iris's face, while the lift operator casually mentions that Sky Tower stands 494 feet tall, weighs over 9,000 tons, and was completed 5 months ahead of schedule. Suddenly, a child starts jumping inside the elevator, which heightens Iris's anxiety even more. They arrive at the restaurant, but the host informs Paul they're overcapacity and can't accommodate them. Paul mentions he arranged everything with Jake, but the host says Jake was let go that morning. Paul nears the host and politely asks if there's any way to help, but the host firmly declines, telling Paul to step aside and then warmly greets the next guest. Iris leads Paul to the bar, telling him to act normal, and when he takes her to the window to enjoy the view, she steps back, and he remembers her fear of heights. He apologizes, calling the night a disaster, but she picks up a rose and says, "It's perfect, because I'm with you." A thorn pricks her finger, but she says she is fine. As Iris heads to the ladies' room, a champagne cork hits the chandelier, causing a drop to fall onto the floor, leaving a visible crack. Later, a young boy tosses coins from the deck, and at the same time, a woman's hat flies off. A security guard warns that boy not to throw coins, but as the guard walks away, the boy mutters, "Fat ass." Meanwhile, Paul proposes to Iris, saying he wants to spend the rest of his life with her. Surprised, she asks, "Do you mean with us?" Paul is stunned as he realizes she's pregnant, and she nervously apologizes, but he smiles warmly and tells her he's the luckiest guy in the world. When Paul slips the ring onto Iris's finger, it feels a bit tight, but she says it's perfect. Paul says, "Let's go celebrate." But as they begin to leave, Iris notices the same boy tossing another coin. The coin is redirected into a nearby vent by air and gets lodged in an exhaust fan. Paul and Iris come downstairs and begin dancing, but the weight of the crowd starts straining the support structure. Meanwhile, an exhaust fan breaks, triggering a gas leak, and the crack in the glass floor worsens. Iris senses something is wrong and slowly backs away. Moments later, the glass floor gives way, causing the people to fall and die. Paul clings to a shard of glass as Iris urges him to grab her hand, but he slips and falls. A stampede breaks out, and a woman catches fire and runs, igniting the leaking gas. Flames spread rapidly, engulfing the restaurant and killing most guests. The survivors rush to the stairs, pushing Iris back, only for that section of the tower to collapse, sending them plummeting. The remaining survivors flee to the elevators, and a man shoves Iris out to make room, but the lift operator stops him, warning it's overcapacity. Suddenly, the cable snaps, sending the elevator crashing down and killing the man. Everyone rushes to the far corner of the restaurant when Iris notices a bottle rolling that way. Suddenly, the building begins to crack, and that section of the restaurant starts tilting, causing people to slide downward. Iris manages to hold on and tries to save another woman, but the woman slips and falls. As she turns, the woman sees a piano swinging above, with a coin resting on the chandelier above it. The coin drops, landing on the piano, which makes the piano slide. knocking the woman and others down. The boy manages to escape the building, but the piano crashes down on him, and the coin rolls back into the fountain. As the last part of the restaurant collapses, Iris is seen hanging on with a small child, but the skin on her fingers peels off, causing them both to fall down and die. And a girl named Stephanie jolts awake in her classroom. That night, Stephanie has the same nightmare and wakes up screaming. Her friend wakes up too, and Stephanie apologizes, then says, "Can I tell you something?" She explains that the woman in her dream is named Iris, which was her grandmother's name. Her friend asks, "Are you serious?" To which Stephanie replies, "I never met her, and I don't even know if she's alive." Her friend suggests, "Either you go home and find out about Grandma and hope the dreams stop, or stay here and die in your sleep for real." Stephanie visits home and asks her dad if he still has the box of her mom's old stuff. Marty asks, "Why?" And she admits she needs to find her grandmother. Marty finds it odd and says he got rid of those boxes years ago, after her mom left. Just then, her brother Charlie comes downstairs, uninterested in her presence, and tells their dad he's heading to the cousins. Stephanie offers to drive him, saying she wanted to visit them anyway, but Marty tells her not to bring up Iris to Uncle Howard. Charlie asks Stephanie why she's here, and she admits she's on academic probation. He bursts out laughing, and she tells him to stop, but he says it's just funny as she is the class president. Stephanie replies that she might lose her scholarship, to which he stops and asks what happened. Stephanie tells him that every time she closes her eyes, she has the same recurring nightmare about Iris, and it has to mean something. When they arrive at their cousin's place, Eric and Bobby welcome them. Julia then comes downstairs but ignores Stephanie and goes straight to Charlie, asking about Jenny. Stephanie asks who Jenny is, and Julia says Charlie met her during junior lifeguards. Stephanie then meets Aunt Brenda and Uncle Howard and says she came because she wants to talk to him about his mother. Howard replies there isn't much to talk about, and when Stephanie mentions she's been having recurring nightmares about her, Brenda suggests it's probably just stress. Stephanie says she's been dreaming of a real place called the Sky View from 50 years ago, then asks, "Did Iris tell you about it?" Eric and the others enter the kitchen as Howard tells Stephanie that Iris is deeply disturbed, and when she suggests talking to Iris might stop the nightmares, he insists Iris is the reason their mother is so messed up. He tries to drop it, but Stephanie presses on, to which Howard explains that after their father died, Iris snapped, locking them inside and obsessing over how they might die. The state eventually took their mother and him away, but Iris kept tracking them, later sending disturbing letters with obituaries and photos of dead bodies. When Stephanie asks if he still has the letters, Howard warns her that Iris is dangerous and she should stay away. After everyone leaves, Stephanie tells Brenda that she feels like she's losing her mind because of the dream, and only she can help her, to which Brenda replies, "Whatever you do, don't look in the bottom drawer of the dining room cabinet." Stephanie finds an envelope containing a photo of Iris and Paul at the Skyview. She visits the address on the envelope, and Iris tells her to leave. But when Stephanie reveals that she's her granddaughter, Iris tells her to empty her pockets. Stephanie insists, "I'm not dangerous," to which Iris replies, "It's not you I'm afraid of." As Stephanie places her phone and keys in a locker, Iris finally opens the gate for her. Stephanie finally meets Iris, who asks, "How is Darlene?" And Stephanie replies, "She left when I was 10, so we haven't seen her since." Iris grows upset and says, "But you saw my letters. That's why you're here?" To which Stephanie explains that she's there because she's been having the same dream about the sky view every night for the past 2 months. In the dream, you're on a date, but then the dance floor collapses. There's an explosion, and everyone dies. Iris says, "That wasn't just a dream, it was my premonition." She explains, "Years ago, at the Sky View, I caught a glimpse of the future and saw what death was about to do. When Paul proposed to Irene, she told him that the entire building was about to collapse and everyone inside would die. She sprang into action, first stopping a boy from throwing a penny, then rushing downstairs to halt the chef from cooking, and finally telling the band to stop playing. She shouted for everyone to get off the dance floor, warning that the glass beneath them was about to shatter." Iris says, "I saved a lot of lives that night that were never meant to be saved, and the restaurant was shut down afterward, supposedly for additional renovations, but it never reopened. Stephanie says, "So you stopped the disaster," and Iris replies, "Yes, but Death doesn't like his plans changed. He came back over the years and took everyone who was there that night, including Paul." Stephanie asks, "Did you say Death came back?" And Iris says he won't stop until he finishes the job, but I taught myself to see him coming, to anticipate his every move. I've kept him at bay for years, but now he's got me as cancer. Iris says she got the diagnosis 2 months ago, and Stephanie replies, "That's when I started having the dream. But why am I seeing what you saw?" Iris says, "Maybe my cancer passed the premonition to you, but what matters is, when the universe speaks, you listen." Suddenly, Iris smells something, and when she turns, she sees a rope burning. She says, "I see you," and throws a bottle at the lens. Stephanie asks who she's talking to, and Iris answers, "Death, saying he thinks I'm distracted because you're here." She then says, "I need to teach you everything in this book, and since it will take time, you'll have to stay here because the outside world is too dangerous, and I haven't stepped out there in 20 years. Stephanie says she can't stay and promises to return, but Iris replies, "I'm sick and won't be alive that long," asking, "Don't you see? Death is coming for our family?" Stephanie says, "I think I made a mistake, and maybe it was just a dream." But Iris urges her to at least take the book. Stephanie runs out, but Iris pauses at the door, knowing that stepping outside could mean her death. Still, she steps out and calls after Stephanie to stop. She approaches Stephanie, saying the book is a lifeline and holds everything needed to protect their family. Seeing Stephanie unsure, Iris tells her to step back, and when she asks why, Iris answers, "Because seeing is believing." Just then, a weather vane falls on a cylinder that launches it straight into Iris's mouth, killing her instantly. At Iris's funeral, Stephanie tells Howard that Iris warned her that death was coming for their family. Just then, Marty notices a vehicle pulling up, and Howard says he emailed her, but didn't think she'd show. Howard walks over to greet Darlene, and she says she can come back, but he quickly replies, "Don't be ridiculous." Stephanie refuses to go to Uncle's house if Darlene is there, and when Charlie asks if she won't even talk to her, Stephanie says Darlene abandoned them, and now pretends nothing happened. Charlie asks, "Who does that?" And when Stephanie questions him, he says he called her many times, but received no response. She apologizes, saying she's been distracted lately, but he points out it's been like this since she left. He says, "You are angry at Mom, but you haven't been present either." Stephanie insists she's not crazy like Darlene, and Charlie replies, "You're not crazy, you just don't care." Later, while Stephanie is writing an email to her professor, the sound of wind chimes outside catches her attention, and she quickly pulls Iris's book from her bag. Meanwhile, Howard is hosting a barbecue party at his house, when Bobby accidentally breaks one of the glasses while setting them up. He cleans up the broken glass, but some pieces remain in the ice. Meanwhile, Eric sets a beer bottle on the wall as he heads over to meet Darlene. Darlene mentions she made cookies, and Charlie asks if he can try one. He takes a cookie and bites into it, then asks if it contains peanut butter. Eric asks, "Are you trying to kill my brother?" And Darlene apologizes, saying she completely forgot about Bobby's allergy. Bobby then prepares drinks for everyone, but a small piece of glass ends up in one of the glasses. Next, Howard raises a toast, saying their mother lived alone until the day she died, and her passing should serve as a reminder to cherish life and spend time together. He cheers with them, expressing his love for everyone. As they take their drinks, Julia suddenly starts choking. Brenda and the others rush to check on her, but Julia insists it was just a bug in her drink and throws it aside. Stephanie flips through Iris's book and finds photos of a truck on one page and a barbecue grill on the next. And then suddenly, some of the pages fall. Meanwhile, as Eric lights the grill, a photo falls and a shard slides towards Stephanie. Howard is talking to Darlene when he takes out a house key and tells her they have a spare room, saying it has to be better than bouncing around trailer parks. Darlene takes the key and says she doesn't think it's a good idea, but Howard replies, "It's never too late for a second chance." Darlene gives the key back, saying, "Sorry," and they're better off without her. Stephanie drives to Howard's house, and tries calling Charlie, but he doesn't answer. As she continues, she gets startled when she sees a danger ahead sign on the road. Bobby and Charlie call out to Howard, asking him to show them his backflip, and the others cheer him on. As they begin jumping, the trampoline's mat starts to tear, and Darlene spots a rake lying underneath. She shouts for them to stop, rushes over, pulls the rake out, and sets it aside in a basket. Meanwhile, Brenda accidentally knocks a bottle, triggering a machine, and a pipe fills with water, causing the nearby gardening tools to topple. As Stephanie arrives, Howard jumps off the trampoline and heads toward her. Bobby gets his foot stuck, and Marty's glass gets knocked. Howard steps on the shard but says, "I'm okay." However, the rake then falls onto the lawnmower, which runs over Howard's face, killing him brutally. After the funeral, Stephanie tells the group she found obituaries and articles about people who were at Skyview the night of Iris's premonition. Each died in strange, tragic ways, in the same order as the vision. Iris had prevented the disaster that night, but death came back for the survivors, one by one. She and the little boy were last, but Iris had prepared and managed to delay death for decades. Marty says this isn't the right time, and Julia adds that it has nothing to do with them. But Stephanie insists it does because death took so long to claim the survivors. Many started families that were never meant to exist, and now death is coming for their descendants. Bobby asks if that means they're all targets, and Stephanie says Dad and Brenda are safe since they're not part of Iris's bloodline. She explains that death moves by age down each family branch, starting with Howard's. So Eric is next, then Julia, Bobby, and finally their branch, Darlene, then herself, then Charlie. Julia accuses her of turning their dad's death into a conspiracy, but Stephanie insists it's real. Brenda tells her to stop, saying Iris's madness has already caused enough pain. After everyone leaves, Darlene tells Stephanie it all seems convincing, but it's not real, and when Stephanie asks how she knows, Darlene says not to let her mom's beliefs ruin her life like they did hers. Stephanie thanks her for the advice, but says she doesn't need a mom anymore. Later, while Eric is at work, the studio owner tells him he's heading to a club and asks Eric to lock up. After the customer leaves, Eric locks the door. He takes out his phone and turns the volume of the music up. Then, he picks up a bottle of disinfectant, pours some onto a cloth, and starts cleaning a chair. But he pauses to turn on the fan. After putting the bottle back, he receives a text from Stephanie asking if he's okay, and he replies, "Fuck off," just as a figurine on the speaker is about to fall. Eric stops the music, but then switches to a sad playlist. After that, Eric begins tattooing his own arm, but on a beat, the figurine falls over a pen holder and knocks a jar full of needles. As Eric stands up, his chair hits a rack, knocking over a bottle of disinfectant. While picking up the shards, the bottle's cap pops off, and a chain hanging from the ceiling snags onto his nose ring. Eric notices the chain getting pulled into the fan, so he quickly tries to detach it from his nose ring. As the chain coils tighter around the fan, Eric climbs onto a stool to free it, but a light stand falls, igniting the spilled disinfectant. Panic sets in, and Eric scrambles onto a glass display case, but the glass gives way under his weight. He manages to rip the chain from his nose ring, but falls hard to the ground, and the disinfectant ignites in flames, engulfing the parlor in seconds. The next morning, Stephanie takes Charlie to look for Eric, and Charlie receives a text stating that the tattoo parlor burned down the previous night. He tells her to look ahead, and Stephanie slams the brakes, hitting Eric, who asks, "Are you trying to kill me?" Charlie says they heard about the fire and thought he was dead. But Eric replies that the firefighters said he was lucky to be wearing a leather jacket. He then shows them a burn mark on his arm, and Stephanie says she doesn't understand. He should have died. Eric says, maybe death isn't actually coming for our family. But just then, a truck speeds by, leaving them all shaken. And Eric says, maybe I'm invincible. Stephanie rushes after him, warning, just because death didn't kill you last night doesn't mean you're safe. Stephanie warns Eric to avoid the tree trimmer and the kids. And when Charlie asks how it could kill him, Stephanie explains the trimmer could fall on the leaf blower guy, who might blow debris into the kids' eyes, making one kick a ball into Eric's face. Julia steps outside and asks what happened to Eric. and he says charbroiled by death. She shrugs and goes for a jog, while Eric tells Stephanie, no one cares about your death curse. However, everything happens just as Stephanie predicted, but it's Julia who ends up in the wrong spot. The three chase after it, but the driver, wearing headphones and glued to his phone, doesn't notice. Stephanie climbs onto the truck to reach Julia and reassures her, "You're not next." Just then, the driver sees Eric and Charlie and slams the brakes, but Julia is crushed in the back, dying instantly. Later, Stephanie admits she messed up the order and blames herself, but Brenda says it's my fault and reveals that Eric isn't Howard's biological son. Shocked, Eric asks what she means, and she explains that during a rough patch with Howard, she got pregnant, and it was good because it gave her him. When Eric asks who his real father is, she says Jerry Fenbury. Eric gets furious to know this and asks, "Is that why he always wanted to play catch?" Bobby asks if that means he's next and pleads with Stephanie for help, but she says she's not sure she can. Charlie insists she can, as she predicted everything, but just got the order wrong because she didn't have all the information. Darlene asks what he means by predicted, and Charlie says Stephanie saw it all. Marty tells Darlene not to encourage it, but Stephanie says it's all in Iris's book, like an equation. Darlene says if Stephanie can see how it all fits, they might have a chance. Marty snaps that she wrecked the family when she left, and they've managed without her. But Darlene insists this time it's real. Marty leaves, saying he needs some air, and Bobby says that while their family clearly needs counseling, the bigger issue is they're all about to die. He asks Stephanie if she mentioned someone Iris knew who cheated death, to which Stephanie nods and opens the book, reading that JB found someone who survived, but it doesn't say who JB was. Darlene says she remembers the name. Her mom used to write her letters and mentioned a friend named JB who worked at Hope River Hospital. As they're all leaving, Stephanie turns to Bobby and tells him to stay with his mom, as it's safer. But he refuses, saying he's not staying alone. Stephanie insists the road is too dangerous, but Bobby argues he's read Iris's book, and there are thousands of house-related deaths in it. They decide to bring Bobby along, but Eric stops them, warning that Darlene made cookies with peanut butter recently, and if Bobby even touches a nut, his throat will close up. He brings the peanut butter jar from the truck and throws it away, and Bobby says he is a good brother. Eric decides to join them, and on the way, Darlene tells Stephanie she was raised by a woman who saw death everywhere. She tried to leave that behind, but after having them, all she could see were the countless ways they might die. She'd panic over nothing, and one day, looking at Stephanie's face, she saw the same scared little girl she once was. That's when she knew if she stayed, she might ruin their lives. She's not sure if leaving was right, but she's here for them now. They arrive at the hospital and meet JB, who tells Stephanie he's been expecting them, and asks, "Which one of you is next?" Bobby raises his hand, and JB says he's sorry to hear about Iris. When Stephanie asks how he knew her, JB says she saved his life at Skyview. His mother brought him to work that night, but he wasn't supposed to be there, except to die. Stephanie realizes, "You were the little boy," and JB confirms. He explains that years later, Iris found him and helped him understand the truth. They exchanged ideas. He helped her reinforce her cabin and got her the best medical care he could. Stephanie mentions Iris said someone once beat death, to which JB replies there are only two ways: take a life and inherit their time, or die and come back. He tells them about Kimberly Corman, who was on death's list but survived after her doctor revived her. When Stephanie asks why Iris didn't try that, JB says it's risky, and if you fail, it can get very messy. Stephanie insists there must be another way, but JB says he's tired and sick like Iris, and people have asked him the same for years. He admits they're all going to die, including him. He says now that Iris is gone, he is retiring, and when they ask where he's going, he says he plans to enjoy his remaining time, advising them to do the same. Life is precious, he says, so enjoy every single second. Stephanie insists there must be another answer, but Eric says JB already gave them one, and there's only one way. They have to kill Bobby, revive him, and that's how they all get off death's list. Darlene says Iris managed to hold off death for decades, and they will too. Eric takes Bobby with him, saying they'll kill him and let the doctors revive him so everyone stays safe. He then tries to buy peanut butter cups from a vending machine, but the packet gets stuck. Frustrated, Eric punches the machine, and Bobby suggests it might be a sign, but Eric breaks the glass. When Bobby suggests they bail now, Eric refuses and tries to tilt the machine. Bobby says it's going to fall, and as they steady it, a spring pops out. Eric grabs the packet, and Bobby asks, "Now what?" To which Eric pushes him into a room. He tosses the packet at Eric and walks out, telling him to wait. But a clipboard falls on a keyboard, accidentally turning on the CT scan machine. After a while, Eric returns with a wheelchair and tells Bobby to sit. He explains there's an ER down the hall, and once Bobby flatlines, he'll rush him there so the doctors can revive him. He asks for Bobby's EpiPen, saying the plan depends on him dying, and the EpiPen is what will bring him back. After making Bobby sit in the wheelchair, Eric urges him to eat the cake. Bobby hesitantly opens the packet and reluctantly eats the cake, and moments later, he begins to choke. As Bobby starts to suffocate, he struggles and tries to grab the EpiPen from Eric. Eric tells him to sit back on the chair, but just then, he gets a call from Charlie. The machine pulls it, causing its power to surge. Suddenly, the machine begins yanking out all the piercings from Eric's body and then pulls him, along with the wheelchair, toward itself. As the machine's power intensifies, it drags the chair in, tearing through Eric's abdomen, and within moments, the machinery pulls him in even more, and Eric dies a brutal death. The machine's power had now increased so much that it could even pull objects from outside the room. Bobby reaches for the EpiPen still clutched in Eric's hand, and after a desperate effort, he finally manages to grab it and quickly injects himself. Regaining strength, he stands up just as a nurse opens the door and asks if he's okay. But the machine pulls a spring with deadly force, blowing his skull apart, killing him in a brutal end. Later, Charlie asks why Eric died if he wasn't related to Iris, and Stephanie says that when you mess with death, things get messy. Darlene insists they need to leave because it's not safe, to which Charlie says nowhere is, but Stephanie suggests Iris's cabin. Darlene agrees, saying it's the one place they have an advantage, and when Charlie asks if they're just going to lock themselves in forever, Darlene says not all of them, just her. She says, as long as she's alive, death can't reach them. But Stephanie says death won't let you get there on your own. But I can see it coming, so they have to go together. Darlene agrees. And as they hug, a coin falls from the book and rolls away. On their way to Iris's cabin, they narrowly avoid being hit by a truck. Meanwhile, an old woman finds the coin and slips it into her purse. They finally reach the cabin, and looking at the place, Charlie says it's impossible to get through that gate. Then the wind starts blowing there, and Stephanie gets scared seeing that, and says death is about to make a move, but she doesn't know what it is. She reverses the truck and slams the accelerator, causing it to speed forward, crash through the door, and burst inside. Stephanie hits the brakes hard, which causes something to fall and break the seatbelt release. As everyone starts to get out, Stephanie's seatbelt won't open, and dry leaves on the roof catch fire. Darlene tries to help, but Stephanie urges them to go inside, saying, "If you get inside, I'll be safe." As Darlene opens the door, a spark flies in, and a flower pot falls onto the stove, causing a gas leak. She quickly shuts the door, but an explosion follows, strong enough to flip the truck into a nearby pond. Charlie gets trapped under a log and sees a light fixture about to fall on him. He struggles, and just in time, Darlene appears and pulls him free. Once Charlie gets out, he stands up, and Darlene tells him to go save his sister, assuring him, "I'm going to stay alive." But a pole falls on her, killing her instantly. Charlie rushes to save Stephanie and jumps into the truck. He finds a knife and tries to cut the seatbelt, but it slips from his hand. Struggling, he manages to retrieve the knife, but in the process, one of his fingers gets cut. Desperate to save his sister, he begins cutting the seatbelt again. But meanwhile, Stephanie loses consciousness, and the scene cuts here. Stephanie suddenly wakes up to find that Charlie has pulled her out and is trying to calm her down. She asks what happened, and he tells her that she had died, but he brought her back, and now they're safe. A few days later, Charlie and Stephanie go to Jenny's house to pick her up for the graduation party. Stephanie says she's really happy she could be there for it, but just then, a rose thorn pricks her finger. Meanwhile, the old woman buys a cookie from the kids, and a coin falls from her purse, which rolls away and gets stuck on the railway track, and a while later, a car passes over it. Marty introduces Stephanie to Jenny's dad, Dr. Reddick, who tells her that they just adore Charlie, and he understands he is quite the lifesaver. Stephanie says he brought her back from the dead, but he says technically she was not dead, explaining that if she was unconscious, and Charlie got her breathing again, then her heart didn't stop. Just then, Stephanie watches the car pass by, and when Jenny steps out, she's dressed exactly like Iris. Before they can react, a train derails and starts heading toward them. They run to escape and barely make it out in time. Charlie helps Stephanie up and asks if she's okay, but suddenly, wooden logs begin to fall, crushing them both to death.